Luke here with the Cats and Carp YouTube channel, and today I'm going to show you guys my ultimate affordable fishing trip bucket list. I have been really fortunate to be able to fish all around this world in many different continents for many different types of fish, and I've gone on a lot of charters. And in those experiences, there are certain charters, certain trips that really stand out amongst all the rest. So buckle up, I'm about to give you the perfect roadmap for your fishing charter bucket list. Now, in order to make this list, a fishing trip has to be something that anyone can do, it's really affordable, and it's really unique. So without further ado, let me give you my list. Well, the first fishing excursion on my list is more than just a fishing experience. It's a Cajun Experience. Cajun Experience is the name of a company down in Morgan City, Louisiana, and I've been with these guys twice, and it is one of the most unique and family-friendly and just diverse and enjoyable experiences on this list, and that's why I made it number one, and it's frankly dirt cheap. Cajun Experience is a small family-run operation run by Stafford Cavalier, who frankly has the best Cajun name on the face of the earth. And they do just about anything a good old Cajun outdoorsman would do down in Louisiana. They do jug lining and catfishing. You can do bow fishing, spearing. They pull crawfish traps and the biggest blue crabs you've ever seen. And you can go out throwing cast nets and catching frogs, and it's just amazing. And you can kind of pick and choose whatever you want to do. So you can say, well, I'd like to go frogging a little bit, or how about let's do some jug lines, or maybe let's go some crabbing. You tell them what you want to do, and they will make the excursion tailored to you. Because one of the things that's unique about this is anytime they do a trip, there's only one party they're dealing with. They have no mixed parties. So you come in there and you hire them, you get your own houseboat with your whole group in there, and everything's included. So they run about $500 for 2 people per day. And there's additional costs if you bring additional people, and kids under a certain age are free. And the rates may change, but it's really dirt cheap. And so they come and pick you up at the boat launch, and they take you out to their houseboat deep into the bayou. And they've got this wonderful setup there that's clean. It's got great AC. It's just a wonderful thing. You tell them what you want to do. You spend all day and night catching things and driving around the bayou. And then they cook up these wonderful Cajun meals for you, you know, boudin balls and frog legs and fried catfish, and you get to eat what you caught. It's just absolutely amazing. And if you have people in your family who aren't really that into the outdoors or fishing, this is a great excursion for them. And if you have young kids who are maybe a little too young to do a traditional fishing charter, this is an amazing trip for them. I take my kids as young as 4 years old out frogging and pulling the crab pots, and they get to pull in the jug lines of the catfish. It's a great thing for small kids. And even if you don't want to touch a frog or catch a fish, just riding around on the boat and being at the houseboat and eating the fresh food is just amazing. As with all of these excursions, I'm going to put a link in the video description to their information to where you can do this, and links to videos where I did these excursions so you can see more about it. One of the things that makes this so affordable is because your room, board, food, and the guide service are all included in the price. It's super cheap. $500 for 2 people. Man, a 4-hour charter and hotel and all that stuff, it would get you way more than $500 a day. So this is a very cheap bucket list fishing excursion that you can do, and it's absolutely great for families. Next on the list is fishing for giant carp on the Ebro River in Spain. If you want to go on an amazing lifetime travel adventure fishing trip and catch massive carp, you cannot beat the price of going to Spain. You know, Spain and the Ebro River are well known for their 1 to 200 pound Wells catfish, but they're also an amazing carp fishery where 30-pound wild carp are kind of normal there, and you can catch some absolute beasts. And in the wintertime, when everything else is kind of shut down, the carp fishing is amazing, and traveling and staying there is so dirt cheap. To give you an idea how cheap it is, I went to Spain a couple years ago with my 4-year-old son Nathan, and we flew from DC to Barcelona We had 5 days of guided fishing, plus room and board and meals, and we had hotel and the rental car, and the entire trip was $1,500 for both of us. I ended up going on this trip because originally I was planning on going ice fishing for 2 days on the Great Lakes in January. And I realized that going to Spain for 8 days was cheaper than going to Michigan and fishing for 2 days. I mean, it's just ridiculously cheap. And it's such a unique experience. The culture and the food in Spain are amazing. And if you're not much into big cities and touristy stuff, you got to get out and see the rural towns and villages in Spain. It's just absolutely a wonderful experience. And you get to catch these enormous 30+ pound carp. The guide I went with is named Nick Shattuck, an absolutely lovely guy. He charged 550 euros for 5 days of guided fishing with all of your gear, your room and board, and 2 meals a day included. So 550 euros is about $600 and change. So for 600 bucks, you get 5 days of guided trips plus room and board and 2 meals a day. I mean, you cannot beat that. And you get to do it in Spain. If you have a wife or family member who would really love to go to Spain but doesn't want to go fishing, this is also a really awesome trip because most of the best fishing happens in the late afternoons and early mornings. And so what you can do is go out sightseeing in the middle of the day, and then your wife goes and stays at the bed and breakfast in her comfy bed, and you fish at night by your rods and reel in massive fish. So it's a great way to get that trip to Europe that your wife always wanted to do, and that you get to go fishing for giant fish. Once again, I'll put Nick's contact information and a link to a video I did in Spain so you can see more about this. One of the most unique activities on this entire list is number 3, spotlighting and dip netting blue crabs in Tampa Bay, Florida. So Florida Crabbing Charters has this really unique service where you go out in basically a bow fishing boat with all these high-powered spotlights, and you cruise around the shallow saltwater flats around Tampa Bay, Florida, and you see all of this amazing wildlife and these blue crabs swimming around and crawling on the bottom, and you take nets and you scoop them up. And it is just a load of fun. It's just something that even if you're not into fishing, you can do. Small kids can do it. I took my whole family doing this back in January of this year. I have kids ages 2, 4, and 7 at the time, and everyone just had an absolute ball, and we caught a massive cooler full of blue crab, which we took home and ate, and it was so much fun. We just had an absolute ball, and it's such a unique thing. I've never heard of anyone else ever doing this. And so if you want a truly unique experience that only costs $350 and that the whole family can enjoy, check out Florida Crabbing Charters. And I'll put a link in the description to their information. That's a great opportunity. If you're like a lot of people I know, going on an Alaskan salmon fishing trip is high on your bucket list of fishing trips you want to do. But it's really expensive to go fishing in Alaska. If you want to do a fly-in fishing trip with some of these high-end lodges, it can be $2,000 per person per day. However, number 4 on my list is the self-guided drop-off service with Phantom River Charters on the Talkeetna River in Talkeetna, Alaska. And it is the cheapest activity on this entire list. For $60, Phantom River Charters will take you up to one of their many salmon fishing spots and drop you off, and you can camp and stay there for half a day or as many days as you like. It doesn't matter. It's $60, and you can go off and camp in the wilderness of Alaska, catch a ton of salmon, and eat them right there on the bank. And you can do that until you're sick of it, and it's $60. And it's absolutely amazing. Now, the best time of the year to do this is the first or second week of August. And so to give you an idea how cheap this is, to get a ticket right now for the first week of August from DC to Anchorage is $484 round trip. And then I can get a bus ticket for $70 round trip to get me from Anchorage to Talkeetna. And then for $60, Phantom River Charters will drop me off and pick me up for as long as I want. So for a total of about $614, I can fly across the width of North America, get to the Talkeetna River, and go salmon fishing in one of the best places on earth for as long as I want, and then come back, and it's going to cost me about the cost of a one-day salmon fishing charter here in the lower 48s. One of the biggest problems with this type of trip is that a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing a self-guided salmon fishing trip on their first trip to Alaska. So what I would recommend is fly up to Talkeetna and hire Phantom River Charters to do one of their many guided trips a day or two before you do your self-guided trip. And they're more than happy to show you all the different spots, how to fish them, all the gear to use, and you'll have a day of fishing with a guide, knowing what you need to have and being all ready, and then you can go do it by yourself for as long as you want. It's hands down the cheapest way to catch a salmon in Alaska, and it's absolutely an amazing experience. And me and my two small boys, we did a camping trip there and just had a ball catching salmon hand over fist. And I'll put a link in the description to that video, as well as Phantom River Charters drop-off service and their guided trips. Number 5 on my list, catching giant white sturgeon on the Frasier River in British Columbia, Canada. At $650 for 8 hours, this is not exactly an inexpensive trip, but when compared to other big game fishing charters, is extremely affordable. On the Frasier River, it is extremely common to catch 8-foot plus sturgeon that weigh over 300 pounds and jump clean out of the water, getting 10 to 12 feet up in the air. It's absolutely amazing. And not only can you catch one of these beasts, when I went there, we caught 6 of them. The smallest being 4 feet and 2 of them being over 8 feet. My guide Steve with SturgeonHunters.com said that that was the 50th fish over 8 foot he'd caught so far that season. They were just everywhere, and you could watch them jump out of the water all the time, like you would watch trout rise. It was one of the most amazing fisheries I've ever seen. If I wanted to go on a comparable big game fishing trip, like for marlin or sailfish, I'd be paying $1,500 to $2,000 per day to do that charter. And I'd be lucky if I caught 1 or 2 sailfish over 100 pounds. But I can go to the Frasier River for $625 and I can go catch 3 or 4 fish over 100 pounds, and it's less than a third of the cost. And it's just amazing. And if you hook into an 8.5 foot, 350 pound sturgeon, and then you watch it jump 12 feet in the air with 3 feet of clear sky underneath it, it's borderline spiritual. So that's why the Frasier River and big sturgeon and fishing is high on my list. Once again, if you want to see a really cool video with that, I'll put a link in the description. Number 6 on my list is renting a fishing boat from Miller's Landing in Seward, Alaska. Now, lots of people have these bucket list fishing trips to Alaska they want to do, but they're really expensive. If you want to take a saltwater fishing charter out of Seward, it's going to start at about $300 per person. And it can be quite expensive. For about $500 per day, you can rent a fishing boat from Miller's Landing, and then you can put up to 5 anglers in that boat. And then if you've got a group or a small family, it's just so much more affordable to go rent the boat, rent the fishing gear, and go out and do it yourself. And also, the nice thing about it is you're doing it yourself, and so you can really do whatever you want. You can go fishing, you can drive up to the glaciers and see them calving, you can go and watch some whales. When I was doing it with my son, we saw a humpback whale breach just like 20, 30 yards from our boat while we were pulling in cod and rockfish. It was just an amazing experience. And it's not uncommon to catch 12 different species of fish, everything from halibut to salmon to rockfish to greenling. I mean, lots of things are possible. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this yourself, doing a self-guided trip by yourself, what you can do is go out on a guided trip in Resurrection Bay a day or two before, kind of figure out how to do it, what gear they're using, and then go out and give it a try yourself. And it's just an amazing experience. I've done 100 to 200 fishing charters in my life, and going out and renting this boat and taking my son out on Resurrection Bay fishing ourselves probably is on the top 10 of my all-time favorite fishing charters. It's just a really wonderful experience in one of the most beautiful stretches of water in all the world. Once again, I've got some videos from that trip. links to the where to rent the boats, I'll put that all in the video description. Number 7 on my list is the James River catching giant blue catfish. If you're into fishing for catfish and you want to catch a new PB, you want to catch a big 30+ pound catfish, hands down the best place in North America is the James River. Now, lots of lakes and rivers have big catfish. What makes the James River special is the sheer number of large catfish. Most of the fishing guides on the James River will do a half your money back guarantee if they don't put a 30-pounder in the boat. Really common to catch a 30-pounder on the James River. As a matter of fact, if you know what you're doing, you should be doing that every single trip. The biggest catfish I've ever caught at 69 pounds was from the James River, and the most catfish I've ever caught in one day was from the James River. I once caught 356 pounds of catfish on the James River in one single day in 8 hours. It was amazing. Typically, guided charters out of Hopewell, Virginia on the James River will run you about $400 for an 8-hour trip. So it's a pretty affordable way to catch a big, massive catfish. So if that's something you want to do, check out any one of the guide services out of Hopewell, Virginia. And I'll put a link in the video description to a couple of those guide services and some videos I did on the James River, including the trip where I caught 356 pounds of catfish. Now, you can go anywhere from early fall to late spring is wonderful time to catch catfish. My favorite time to catch blue catfish on the James is January. You find a nice, warm, sunny day in January, and the fishing is just amazing. Number 8 on my list is off-the-beach shark fishing in Panama City Beach, Florida. Now, if you don't know what this is, off-the-beach shark fishing is when you shark fish using enormous reels with like 900+ yards of line on them. And you put your rods on the beach and you take a kayak and you paddle out way out into the ocean and drop your bait and leads into the ocean, then paddle back to shore where you wait for a bite, and then you reel in and fight your fish. And it's really typical to catch a 6-foot+ shark doing this. I had one day where I think we caught 6 to 12 sharks in one night. And typically they're about 6 feet long and weigh about 200 pounds. So, I mean, it's just an awesome way to get some hands on big fish, and it runs about $200 per night. So it's really affordable, and it's a unique and fun thing to do. Once again, I'll put a link in the description to some videos where I did that and to some guide services that offer that service down in Florida. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see any videos about the fishing trips I mentioned in this list, check the links down in the video description for a full video on each one of those trips. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe. We put out new videos every Saturday morning.